Look at this. Millions of people across the country marching as we speak against the policies of President Trump. This is Boston. Look at that.
I told you guys yesterday that they were trying to fool us. I told you guys that the mainstream media, they were trying to make it seem like the entire country was rising against the Trumper. You know, I didn't say this yesterday because I wasn't sure, although it was kind of implied. But when I shared reports that 7 million people supposedly, keyword, supposedly, when I shared reports that 7 million people supposedly attended butt bongo festivals across the country that the media was describing as no kings, just queens rallies. I was skeptical of that number, mainly because I believe nothing, and I mean nothing, that is reported by the mainstream media. The opening clip of this video was some doofus named Velshi from MSNBC. This is a prime example of what I'm talking about. Saturday afternoon, MSNBC used footage from a Boston protest in 2017 and claimed that it was live footage from a No Kings rally in Boston. Now, of course, MSNBC and their pretend friends in the media, they are denying this blatant propaganda because that's what the media does. They deny their lies. The problem is, no one believes you. Right now, the mainstream media is using one of the oldest tactics in propaganda. They are artificially inflating attendance numbers at No Kings protests to make it seem like this is a mainstream movement, just like they are making it seem like these were grassroots protests when the reality is the No Kings protests were heavily funded and organized by our good friend George Soros. Back in the 1980s and 90s, Vince McMahon used to do the exact same thing with attendance at WWF events. March 1987. WrestleMania 3 was held in the Pontiac Silverdome right outside of Detroit. For grown men who spend their weekends dressed as Doink the Clown, WrestleMania 3 is viewed as a seminal event in the history of orchestrated combat. I'm sure you guys have seen the clips of Hulk Hogan, I am a real American. I'm sure you've seen the clips of Hulk Hogan body slamming Andre the Giant. Those clips were taken from WrestleMania 3. According to Vince McMahon, over 93,000 people attended the event live. For decades, that number has been disputed. Official reports claim that attendance at WrestleMania 3 was around 78,000. Either way, the number was impressive, especially when you remember that this happened in 1987 when wrestling events were taking place in parking lots or dimly lit high school gyms. Whether it was 78,000 or 93,000, the number was still impressive. So why would Vince McMahon choose to artificially inflate an already impressive number? Because he knew psychologically 93,000 was far more impressive. He always wanted to make the WWF seem like it was bigger than it actually was. Even with his weekly television shows, if actual attendance was 7,000, Vince McMahon would claim that it was 10,000. Hell, some of those civic centers couldn't even hold 10,000 people, but Vince McMahon would say it anyway because he wanted the WWF to feel important. Vince McMahon was brilliant when it came to polishing the turd. Of course, it's damn near impossible to inflate attendance numbers now because technology is advanced enough to track it, which is something that the mainstream media should have known when they falsely claimed that 7 million people attended No Kings protest, because according to multiple reports, the actual number was much, much lower. Make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel in the description below. Later today on the second channel, gonna be talking about another brutal Sunday in the NFL. Yesterday was bad. If the NBA regular season was on yesterday, I would have been watching the NBA instead of the NFL. I don't understand why the league continues to devalue NFL Red Zone. Someone sent me a list yesterday of the quarterbacks that were on the field during the fourth quarter of the early window of games. When you see this list, it will confirm what we have been complaining about here on the channel all these years. So if you haven't already, click the link in the description below, subscribe to the second channel. Over the weekend, deacons at Woke United Methodist and their pretend friends in the mainstream media, they were celebrating the so-called success of the No Kings protest. We are so back! 7 million lonely men let go of their wanker to protest the evil orange dictator. We are taking over America! Woohoo! Yes, yes, yes! I was skeptical of that number because a lot of the protests that I saw were empty. I have seen more people sleeping through WNBA games than I was seeing at these No Kings protests on Saturday. Even at the inflated figure of 7 million, that only equates to around 2,600 people per protest, or as the WNBA would call it, a sellout. According to multiple reports on Twitter from independent journalists, the actual attendance at the No Kings protest on Saturday, 650,000. $650,000? $650,000. Initially, when I was notified that attendance was artificially inflated, I was thinking actual attendance was 5 million instead of 7 million, or maybe even 6 million instead of 7 million. I was thinking that the media was borrowing Vince McMahon's strategy and adding 10, 15, 20% to the actual number. Instead, it looks like they multiplied it by 10 and added an additional 50,000 people. I'll be honest with you, 650,000, that seemed low, so I did some additional research. I found a spreadsheet that included source links and provided attendance for damn near every city that was infected with these protests. According to this data, there were 3 million people protesting across the country on Saturday, which means the average No Kings protest drew a crowd of 1,100. To me, that sounds about right. 7 million, way too high. 650,000 seems a bit low. But 3 million, with the average protest having 1,100 people, that sounds right. Either way, the No Kings protest can only be described as huge embarrassing failure, because outside of wasting time, outside of temporarily depleting traffic on Grindr, the No Kings protest accomplished absolutely nothing. The only thing they accomplished, they gave normal people something to laugh at. Watching 70-year-old men walking the streets dressed as a toad's ass, seeing dudes with oxygen tanks pretending to be olive oil, watching grown men throwing a temper tantrum as they protested a mythical king. It was funny. It was funny, but it was also concerning at the same time, because one of two things are true here. We either have a growing portion of the population who is living in a world of make-believe, or a lot of these people weren't actually protesters, they were paid employees. Either way, it ain't good. I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of this shit. I am tired of people who hate America voicing their fake outrage. I am tired of people who hate this country telling us that we need to acclimate to them. I'm choosing to identify as a dandelion. You must accept me and my emotional support moose. Hey, my name is they. If you call me them, I'm convicting you of using improper pronouns. Over the weekend, Mark Levin gave what I thought was a brilliant monologue on Fox News. He was explaining why it is time for the Trumper to use the Insurrection Act against the Democratic Party. He spent several minutes going through American history, highlighting presidents who had used the Insurrection Act in the past. George Washington, John Adams, Abraham Lincoln. JFK used the Insurrection Act in the 60s to desegregate Southern universities who were outright refusing to do it. Lyndon Johnson, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, the HW. Talking about the father. I'm not talking about George Bush, the W. Back in the 1950s, the Communist Party was essentially banned in America. The point is, the federal government has taken action in the past to protect the country against internal threats. Now, is the Democratic Party, more specifically, is the radical wing of the Democratic Party a threat to America? I don't know. You tell me. They want to abolish the Second Amendment. During the administration of our former fearless leader, Johnny B. Biden, they were allegedly pressuring big tech companies to silence conservative voices. They intentionally opened the southern border, allowing millions of people into the country unchecked. Right now, they are fighting ICE agents in major cities. Colleges and universities have turned into indoctrination centers. Instead of teaching engineering, instead of molding the next generation of lawyers, universities are teaching young people about the never-ending quest of queer love. To make matters worse, universities are training the next generation of socialists. They are teaching kids to idolize Karl Marx. Oh, Karl Marx. What a great man he was. He refused to work, refused to get a job, refused to support his family, which is probably why the primary purpose of Marxism is taking money away from people who actually generate income and giving it to yourself. According to Dr. Paul Kingor, the author of the book The Devil and Karl Marx also had a fascination with Satan. So, you tell me, is the radical wing of the Democratic Party a threat to America? Not all Democrats are bad. John Fetterman, Josh Shapiro, Bill Maher. There are some Democrats who haven't lost their mind. Problem is, far too many of them are silent. There are too many Democrats who are terrified to stand with Republicans against the radicalized lunatics. And if they continue to live in fear, the Democratic Party, it has absolutely no chance of survival. Sound off in the comments below. I'll see you guys later.